I'm going to open the meeting from over in the corner here. So open the meeting as opposed to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, tonight I have to say thank you to someone who has worked on board, on the planning board, comprehensive plan, the zoning law, let's see, Black Creek Watershed, the Citizen Advisory Board, and everything else that Kevin could come up with that he wanted to work on, or we came up with to offer Kevin, and he couldn't refuse. So he's been doing many, many, many things for the village, and greatly appreciated all those things. And you know, Kevin, you're not gonna have to look at your phone with that little message. Can you give me a quick call, please? Because they never ended up being quick calls. They were always long calls, but very productive calls. So Kevin, I appreciate you always being there and willing to talk and willing to review things. And we had many really good conversations. Kevin has great vision. He has great insight. He offers a different perspective to things. He always says something that makes everybody laugh when we're having these discussions. And he's always very thoughtful and considerate of the things that we're working on. And most importantly, it was always the village first. And those decisions, you know, it wasn't what I wanted, what somebody else wanted, whatever. Kevin was always, which is what the theme was, what we've always worked on, was what was best for the village. So Kevin, I just want to express our appreciation and read this little, see I have props here. So with this proclamation it says, whereas Kevin Donovan is retiring as trustee of the village of Bergen, a position he has held for 9 years, 8 of which as deputy mayor. Whereas Kevin Donovan served the village with professionalism, attention to detail, and dedication for fiscal responsibility. Whereas Kevin Donovan also served the village as a member and a chairman of the planning board. Whereas Kevin Donovan has diligently served the community of Bergen as a member of the Park Committee, Mill Seat Landfill, Citizens Advisory Board, the Black Creek Watershed Committee, Comprehensive Plan Committee, Zoning Law Update Committee, and now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the mayor and trustees of the village of Bergen, New York, Genesee County extend their appreciation with the utmost respect to Kevin Donovan for his years of service. So thank you, Kevin.
I'm tired of this.
And a little bit of a gift for our appreciation, and I have another gift in my office that you'll have to pick up later. You can open that now.
Over it now.
Mm-hmm.
Should I be afraid or not?
I don't know. You never know. You know when you do Zoom meetings, you can put that behind you.
Let me see if
Oh, yeah?
Very
Nice.
So
I can. Really neat.
enjoy.
Thank you.
And thank you, Kevin, for all that you've done for all of us.
It all started when Wayne was mayor. And he, you know, Art Weiser friends, we were friends, so he said, well, why don't you want to be on the planning board? So I moved him on. So, and in those days is when the whole Maine States thing was going on. There was a lot of angry people, things like that, I think. So those meetings were not always pleasant.
One once a month.
So, yeah. And by the way, this is much, I worked for Kodak for over 30 years. This is more than I got from Kodak. Of course, I was glad to get out of there, so, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
very much.
you. Thank you. All right. So onward. I know everyone's had an opportunity to take a look at the bills. If there is a motion to approve.
I'll make it.
Okay, second.
I'll second it.
Emily, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Carried. Oh, and by the way, this is post-COVID. This is how we used to meet.
I remember, like,
I know,
It feels so strange.
and far away. Okay. Meeting minutes from the February 9th, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Joe, is there a second?
I'll second.
Paul, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Carried. You have a copy of my report. I'm going to read through it. Just wanted to make a mention of the Preservation New York grant. That's something new that's come up. The Landmark Society has talked with the state offices that make the determination about grants that we receive and who oversaw the Main Street grant. And we have the opportunity to extend our historic district. Our historic district is right here in this section, and that was the district that was able to participate in Main Street grant. And now what they're telling us is we would need to do a survey for the whole community if we were to extend our district. Well, in talking with the state, the Landmark Society has talked with them about the way that we did Main Street and the results of Main Street and how everything was taken care of, and they're gonna waive that survey, which is $30,000, and we are going to be able to apply for the program that takes place in historic districts where homes in the historic district or other buildings in the historic district would be able to participate in funding for their businesses, for their homes, and for their buildings, their other buildings, and receive tax breaks, both federal and state tax breaks for the work that they do on their building. It's not necessary that they participate with SHPO, which is very constraining for some of those buildings, but the monies will be there, the funding will be there in order to support taking care of their homes. New York State is very much involved in preserving these historic homes because we're moving them very quickly, and they want to make sure that there's support for that. So through that research, we should be able to participate, and then it will be homes prior to 1940 that will be able to participate. So that's quite a few of the homes. I apologize, my mouth is very dry today. I keep drinking water, but it's not working. So it's a good opportunity for us. So I'm hoping that we will continue and go through that process. So we started the grant, and then we're finishing up the GBRR grant for this building.
Is the Preserve New York grant, and that's an ongoing thing, or just one time?
It's ongoing. It's ongoing. It cycles
That's
through
right.
just like the others. Yeah. So I'm excited that we were given that opportunity. So I think it's a really good place for us to be.
Mayor, is that all the streets in the village?
All the streets in the village.
So say that's all historic.
They will determine what they are, but it's going to include north and south of Lake, or north and south of the Main Street section here. It will be Rochester Street, Buffalo Street, Clinton Street, Mackenzie Street, so all the streets that have historic homes, and they're considering pre-1940s. Those homes would need to show historic features, and 90% of the buildings in this village show historic features. So that's going to be the precursor for their opportunity to participate. So, yeah, that'd be great. Park committee, infiltration, Courtney, I think, has some information on his report as well. With all the snow melt and everything else, there's been a lot of water going into our system where it doesn't belong. We knew that was happening, and we're planning on doing some work with that. And Courtney and Chris were able to go out and investigate some of the manholes. And Joe, there's a couple on your property. Took some videos. It's quite disappointing to see the amount of water coming in. But we met with Eric Weiss, our engineer, and went over a plan. So that's all coming together, and that plan will be proposed to repair those things and try to start eliminating that infiltration. This is one piece. There will be other pieces because it's not just there, and those things will need to be carried out. GAM meeting, those are the topics we talked about.
we talked about the wastewater treatment plant, the UV disinfectant system, that's been planning, there's a plan being put together for that to be installed. It's going to be inside rather than outside the plant for a whole bunch of reasons that make it much more efficient that way. Stage pavilion is being painted, it's getting used so often that we have to paint the inside. And they have a plan to do that, you know, on Monday, so it doesn't interfere with everything else that's going on. I'm gonna have to get a glass
I can remember.
of water. That's happening.
We're up to, what, 46 rentals for the year?
Already, already, and it's just March. It's exciting, it's exciting. You know, and always a shout out to our crew for the work that they do on the clearing of the snow, and I guess we're supposed to get another few inches this weekend coming up. Great, that's all right. And, yeah, there's just other little things that have been going on that I've been participating with, so. All there, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you. I didn't have any potato chips, I think. So, all right.
Please take a question from the floor about your report.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious, is under the meetings, et cetera, that you spoke with the owner of the truck delivery company,
Yes,
is that the 18-wheeler that was going up and down Rochester Street?
no, this is the company that delivers, several times a week,
Oh,
and they don't wanna go around the back, so you make deliveries in the back. So they've been parking on the south side of Buffalo Street facing the wrong direction. So cars are, you know, having to go around, yeah. So I took some pictures, talked to the owner of the company, oh, that shouldn't be happening, nope, you're right, that shouldn't. So they delivered this side, they were parked on this side of the street, but for a very short period of time this morning, so I guess they got the message. I mean, safety.
Very neat.
So. Any other questions?
So what is the 18-wheeler going down Rochester Street?
People who tend to be lost, they shouldn't be
6
going.
o'clock in the morning.
Oh, really?
On a regular basis?
Yeah,
Wow.
they're not lost.
No,
Twenty-one.
not anymore, because it's not the other ones.
Towards Thursday, yeah.
What we have to do, if you're up and you see it, take a picture so
Yeah.
that I can call, because that seems to work. That seems to work. This is not the first time that I've called for other things, and, it seems to work. So, yeah.
Yeah, we get a lot coming this way too, and then turning that way, I just don't understand.
I think if they're using MapQuest or something to that effect, that's
Yeah.
directing them down Rochester Street rather than taking them
There was a problem.
Right.
the right way to go.
Can we put a sign up limiting the weight on the road?
Yeah, and I've actually called, what is it, MapQuest and some of the other
Oh, really?
mapping places, yep, we had some conversations there. And, you know, we can do this, we can't do this, we can do this, we can't do this, and they will not put anything on there that restricts traffic from coming down any particular street. The ones that I talked to, there's a slew of them. And in, you know, they can't help us out with that, maybe not now, maybe in the future they will be, but right now they can't help us out with
I
that.
think that used to happen when Wayne was mayor, it used to happen, they come down his street, make that
Yes,
turn and
that's right,
and
that's right.
knock over his mailbox.
Yes, a lot. A lot.
Change that too. We talked about changing the weight limit.
Yes, yes, yes. So there are things we're working on, it's just, yeah, but seriously, if you can get a picture or something that I can go by to show that that's happening, and then get hold of the company. It seems to work. They don't want that kind of information going out, you know, that they're not being as safe as they should be, or they're traveling on the wrong streets, so that seems to help.
Yeah, I see my report there, just, quick addition, the mayor talked about the overflow and infiltration. Because of all the infiltration, we had an overflow plant, but the DEC did not have a problem with it because the plant was running 100% and running effectively. But also there were multiple other places in the area who had the same problem. The ground was so saturated, and then we had to melt off, and we got the rain. There really wasn't anything that we could do about it. So it was, it was unfortunate, but at least the DEC understood. And some places pump it right into the creek. When we're having problems like that, we would never do that, and we have a good amount of distance from where it started overflow to get to the creek. So it went over a lot of vegetation before, and it never made it to the creek.
It's probably 90% water anyway.
It was crystal clear coming down the driveway. And even in the manholes that we took video of the manholes, and it was crystal clear water. There was no foaming or any gray that you normally see in the manholes, and there was no smell either.
So, there you go.
And I just wanted to mention too, the designing of the, Chris Fay's been very involved in the, working of the plant, the designing of the UV and whatnot, and they decided they were going to have it outside and in the ground or whatever, but along with Eric Weiss and Casey, they decided to bring it inside where it was way easier to maintain, and don't have to worry about other things getting in there and weather. And then today, he was talking to Casey, who's really the lead guy for this project, and he was able to eliminate half of the UV bulbs because they wanted the extra UV bulbs to help, as a redundancy. But really, the UV bulbs are the redundancy for our membranes.
Yeah.
So there was no, multiple redundancies. So, kudos to Chris for recognizing that and talking to those guys, and they will change plans, which will save the village some money, which will probably just go into fixing more manholes. At least, that's a good thing on infiltration.
Still think they should just never turn it on.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And I also got a call from Casey today during a meeting with Eric earlier in the week. We talked about putting everything up. We had to put the UV out for bid and the lift station repair out to bid, and it had to be in and considered underway by, I said, May 1st. So Casey gave me the information for the bid today, and I put it in the paper, and he's going to put it in trade papers or whatever they call it, and so the bids will be open, April 6th at noon, and then so that way we can approve it on the 11th, the 13th, April 13th, and the second meeting in April. The other thing is that there's a program called ERAP, and it's a federal program to help fund people who has needs with all this is rent and utilities. I've got a lot of calls from the state from HEAP asking us to participate, so I guess I just want you guys to think about it. I'll make a decision here shortly. Really, I keep on getting calls from them, seeing if we want to participate. They say they have people who live in our area who want to take advantage of the program, but they won't give us names or how much or any of that. And I'm not sure because there's so few people who owe us money and who are even on the shut-off list. I don't know how we take much advantage of the project. So.
And I think too, the way that all of those bills are handled, whether it's electric or whatever it is, within our office, and offer people other services that help them out. So it seems like it would just be one more layer that we may or may not need. But I think we don't, we need to look into a little bit more information there as well. And like Paul said, maybe check in with the county at this point and see if the county has some information for us, because we don't seem to be getting the answers that we need
I'd
to
be
make
curious how much work
decisions.
it is to
Mhm.
administer it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I believe Renee was on a webinar for it, and the amount of paperwork and what's involved, so time consuming.
This federal program you said?
I want to help everybody we can, but like I said, we help, everybody who needs help, we're able to get them help through HEAP and the other programs that we are. I have this, Renee gave me just to show, these are what we wrote off for this fiscal year, so we're coming close to the end of the fiscal year. So as of today, we've only had to write off $135.86.
It's great, that's amazing.
It's low. And that's, it was lower last year, actually.
Not much to see.
We sent them to collections and we might get some money back from collections, so. But, yeah, I'm proud of that.
I just want to comment on the wastewater treatment plant as well. I mean, that was a pretty tremendous amount of water coming in the other day. And Chris did an amazing job with the whole thing, making decisions about what needed to be done. We were all on the phone talking about, you know, how to handle it. Do we call the DEC? Do we do this? Do we do this? And, you know, it's kind of a, where do we go from here kind of thing. But the whole plant handled what it needed to handle, which is wonderful, which means our membranes are working the way they're supposed to, and the system is working the way that it's supposed to. And, you know, having that water sent other places, it did overflow, but, you know, everything worked. Everything worked. And yes, it was overflowing, but it was all managed. And I think that's something we should be grateful for, because a couple years ago it wasn't quite working that well. So it's coming along. Each thing that we do and the monies that are being spent, a lot of which we are getting funding for to support that, but it's coming along. I think a couple of years ago we would not have been able to manage that at all. So.
Normally, we're nowhere near 100% capacity, right? I'm just thinking, as you mentioned in your meetings, about the 60 acres of land and possible development, and that stuff, so we still have room for all that.
Mm-hmm. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, the one thing that is a concern is when we're running normally, you know, we're at, say, 80,000 gallons a day. We have plenty of room for a housing development. But, you know, on days like the other day, we're maxing out at 185, and we're sending water, we're sending some out to the retaining, the activation ditch, and then, you know, that fills up and overflows. If we had another 100 houses, that would be that much worse. So we definitely have to, you know, take care of the filtration.
Well, that full build would, I think, added 24% more houses or something like that, from what I remember. So, doesn't the plant have capacity for expansion? Or didn't it? I thought, maybe not.
If it's running at full, and I forget the exact number that Eric said, we would be able to handle it. It's just, we're not there yet. You know, we're not there to the point where we can handle that kind of thing. We're looking at lots of options for if, when, who knows, a housing development can come in. It's certainly not gonna start with 100 houses.
No.
It's gonna start with 5 and then, you know, build whatever. And people are talking about it, we're meeting about it, but who knows? You know, there's a long road to go before anything like that happens. And hopefully, by the time we're ready for something like that, we will have gotten our plant to the point where it's gonna be able to maintain itself, taking in more. So, we'll chip away, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time.
When the water is warm, obviously all the water right now is cold, you know, the melt off. So when the water is warm in the summertime, if you have heavy rain and it gets down to the plant, we can process, you know, upwards of 215,000 gallons. But because the water is so cold, the membranes, the pores are going to contract a little bit, so they can't come through. The pressure of those membranes increase. So if you try to put too much through, the plant will shut off because there's too much pressure in those membranes. you have to do a balancing act of pressure and
Mhm.
how much goes through there, so you can dial it back and to just the right,
Would it be something that, once the UV lights are in, that if we had a day like that, you could take out the membranes and it could go through the UV faster?
No.
It has to go through the membrane.
Okay,
because of
Because-
primary, filtration.
okay.
You know, with all that filtration you're talking about coming through, that's snow melt, so
Yeah.
it's cold,
Yeah.
you know, which is exactly what we don't want, so, yeah. So maybe, well, we'll see what the project is that's proposed, but let's strengthen those, cleaning them up, you know, and relighting them or whatever the situation happens to be. We don't know yet how we're gonna repair them, but they will be repaired, and if we cut back on that, you know, we estimated 7,200 gallons a day, just one manhole, the way that the water was
Wow.
coming in. So it's a lot of water, it's a lot of cold water coming in, which is exactly what we don't want. You know, the water that comes through, because of where the pipes are, you know, the ground is a certain temperature at the level that those pipes are, so it's not gonna be ice cold water, it shouldn't be, it's coming through, you know, below, and getting that infiltration coming in, cold water increases the pressure in those membranes, which kind of, you know, is counterproductive to what we're trying to do, so.
And you know, there was at least 2 manholes that were underwater.
Oh, yeah, I saw. Yeah.
Are they guessing?
No, well,
You got this,
yeah,
you got
Like a saucer underneath?
Yes.
yes, they have a sauce, well, most of them do.
most, yeah, there was a few they couldn't do for some reason,
Well,
different sizes or something, but I'd say 98% of them are gas.
All right, any other questions for Courtney? Okay, Gary Cesare submitted his monthly report for permits and inspections and so on, so that's included. If you have any questions on any of those, I know Gary is more than happy to answer any of those questions. All right. Okay, onward to privilege of the floor. Anyone have any questions pertaining to village business?
I'd like to thank Kevin for his service. It's been very much appreciated. We've always been really calming presence. And again, very much appreciate having you here. Thank you so much for the time that you've invested for the good of the village.
Absolutely. I'm client,
Yeah. I don't have to answer now.
That's true.
That's true. Question.
Can you just say nope, no quick talks? Okay. Emily, anything for the good of the order here today? Okay, Joe, anything? Kevin?
No.
Okay. Courtney? Never mind, Courtney.
Is that
Were
the
you
table?
going to
No,
answer?
no concerns, thank you.
All
Oh
right.
God, they moved it over already.
Oh, I did have one question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't
That's
realize
okay.
you were done. So in front of the old schoolhouse, there's been some crap sitting by the side of the road. What do we have to do to get rid
We're
of
just
that?
gonna pick it up. We're just gonna have to pick it up because they're obviously not taking care of it, so we'll have to pick it up. There's been other things that recover the snow for a long period of time,
Yes.
so, yeah. And, you know, with the wind and everything else that's gone on, you know, they'll be driving around and if there are piles up, they'll be picked up. So we're not gonna put a schedule in place just yet, but those things will be picked up, so they'll be taken care of. But yeah, I don't know, periodically there's stuff there.
Yeah.
Somebody must move out on their own.
Probably.
But they're always in the same spot, in that same corner, right across from
Yeah, I don't
Joey's
know how they,
house.
So it doesn't look like it's right in front of their,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm.
who knows?
I have some questions. For Joe. Mr. Swain,
Yes.
forgive me. Unfortunately, there was no open forum for people to ask candidates questions about why they're running and what they have in mind. So I hope it's appropriate here, because there's not another opportunity, and of course the election is next week. I'm just curious,
Can I,
on the
can I
sound,
stop just one
Sure.
second? Okay. I don't know if you're comfortable with that
right,
at this point in time, or you can do it at the end of the meeting,
Okay.
at the end of the meeting.
I mean, it's perfectly fine.
Whatever you want to.
I'll do it at the end.
Pardon me?
I can meet with you one-on-one
All right,
after the meeting.
thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Alright. I just wanted to ask, if the board is available on March 23rd, if we could have a little workshop meeting. You'll have to come. To finish up anything that we need to do with, the budget, because we're gonna need to have that approved in April. And, we have a couple of other things that we may need to finish up before the end of March. So if you're available on the 23rd, it would be at 6:30 to do the same thing. If that works for everybody. Alright, and we'll send out an agenda for you or whatever, but it, it's basically a workshop kind of thing that we'll pull together. Alright, under new business, it says procurement policy update. I'll give you a little background. The process of the Main Street grant, in the end, we have a conference with the state, several people there, in a meeting with Mike Coquit, who was our administrator, and we needed to work with him. So it was a conference call going through all the pieces, to make sure that everything was finished up correctly and all the work was done the way that it needed to be done. And one of the things that they asked about was our procurement policy. Now, they had to have a copy of that. That's part of the application process. You have to send in a procurement policy for the village. But what happened when we went out for RFPs, thank you, for the administrator of the grant, I could not do that. We could not do that here. That had to be an outside business, which ended up being Labella, and Mike Coquit was the person who was responsible. What happened was we only got one response to the RFPs that we sent out for administrating the grant. And they were okay with that, they approved everything and so on and so on, so everything was done. But what they asked for was that the next grant that we do, we need to make sure that there's a different situation with the RFP and what we're requiring as we get bids for an administrator on that. So this was their suggestion, that we add this step to our procurement policy. And what it says is, when procuring the services of a grant consultant, the village will combine the application and administration process in a request for proposal to ensure the suitable number of proposals are secured proactively. The village will utilize a consultant to pursue and ultimately administer a grant, both application and administration. So, when it's necessary to do so, and we need to have the grant administered by an outside company, then we need to follow this portion of the procurement policy. If we do the administration in-house, which we've done most of the time, we don't need to follow that particular portion of the procurement policy, but it needs to be in place in case we need to have someone else administer the grants as they come in. Does that make sense? Any questions?
Is there anything about what the suitable number of proposals is?
You're supposed, go ahead.
Usually they like at least 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that like, I don't know, do we need to put that in? I know at the beginning of the thing, it was like, you need 3
Mhm.
for this thing, you
Mhm.
need 3 for this, but this one doesn't have a number, so.
No, but that's part of the policy.
Okay.
already,
Okay.
okay? But yeah, so we only ended up getting a response from one, and they approved that, the state approved that. They have to approve everything when you're doing that kind of thing, so they approved that. And then this was the recommendation in the end, when everything was all said and done, this is the recommendation that they asked us to put in.
We did send out a considerable amount of letters to
Yeah.
prospective consultants. I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
And,
We got one.
That's really interesting.
You know,
so we can't really control that part.
Right.
maybe everybody was busy, I don't know. It was quite the job, certainly quite the job. It was, there's a lot of paperwork, so. So if, question?
You need a motion then? I'll make a motion to amend the procurement policy.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Next is the resolution number 5 of 2022, the delegate resolution. You guys get these, you got the dates written?
I'm not sure.
Semi-annual meeting of MUA is going to be on April 12th and April 13th. And this resolution makes Courtney Gale, the delegate from the village of Bergen. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Joe, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Curious that in the email there was another one that had Nick as something.
Yeah,
That was old.
Is that
Oh,
something? Oh, that was an old
that was for the annual.
Old
Okay.
annual, yeah.
All right. And, spend some time on budgets if you want. If you have questions or anything, you wanna discuss after taking a look at the budgets for a while? Start with,
We're gonna have a meeting, I don't know, maybe
on the 23rd.
23rd.
Mm-hmm.
I can answer any questions now, but more.
You wanna take some time, more time to review them and then make it, that workshop? If there's something you want us to take a look at in the meantime, that you might have a question on, that we might have to, review before the 23rd? Anything in
I got one
particular?
question. I have to think, what, our street sweepers in bad shape, evidently can't be used. Should we can discuss it, but should we just cut our losses and send it off to the auction, get what we can out of it, or?
Well, yeah, it's certainly an option. We have been putting money into it. There's some things that we need to brushes. Sucker still works, and it still drives, but, yeah, that's something we can definitely decide on. It's in great shape.
I mean, maybe we'll get some revenue out of it. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, I was hoping at least to be able to, suck the catch basins out this spring, because, the stone was so loose. A lot of the stone got into the catch basins on the streets that we did, so at least we can use it for that before we take it to auction.
Okay.
I got a ballpark price on one just last week, $275, 18 months.
That's why it took us so long to make a decision about what to do and.
Well, we had that for 6 years? No, longer than that.
Yeah. Gary was
Gary was
here.
here.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Maybe
6
six.
years. I thought it was longer than that.
No.
So you're looking for them.
Oh, no, we're talking about.
Right, we talked
Ken had one that he wanted to buy.
That's what I'm thinking.
It's too bad, I mean, the truck and the chassis is in fine shape, just,
The sweeper.
the part,
That has to
the
work.
important part.
Have you had anybody like sent down, take a look at it and just give you any kind of estimate on rebuild or?
We did, way back when, Gary was here.
Okay.
I I don't remember how much it was, but I know it was,
More than-
it was
It was
quite a bit.
overwhelming, yeah.
The problem is Gary thought he could fix it himself, so he started taking things apart and, then didn't know how to put back together.
They are hydraulic,
Yeah.
nightmare.
Yes, and a nightmare ever since.
Yeah. Electrical wasn't right, and hoses aren't right.
Well, there's nothing else, and then we'll meet again on the 23rd. Is there a motion to adjourn? There's a second.
I'll second.
Yay, Paul, that's
Those kind of motion to adjourn, but it's not.
That's right, you have to come in. All right,